Mariah confesses, Chelsea declares herself a Newman. The Young and the Restless spoilers for March 29th suggest that Mariah Copeland risks her freedom, while Chelsea Lawson goes scorched earth like a bona fide Newman. When Chelsea sees Billy Abbott at Society, she loses it after hearing him on a call with Sally Spectra, in which he mentions merging a new acquisition into Spectre Charles. Main character syndrome. Chelsea accuses him of rubbing their Newman media win in her face, and makes it clear that she's a Newman now and will fight for Adam Newman's honor. In turn, Billy asks if Chelsea was in on Jack Abbott's kidnapping like the con she was in the past. Chelsea responds that he's just made it personal and notes that while Adam is helping his family, Billy mopes around. Speaking of the Vegas crew, Nick Newman waits as Adam leaves Riza Thompson yet another voicemail. Riza calls Adam back and he invites her to his room to catch up. When Riza arrives, she pulls a gun on Spider. Elsewhere, Nick is having a pain meltdown in the elevator and takes one of Matt's surplus fentanyl pills. Meanwhile, Christine Blair Romalotti tells Sharon Newman that she wants to ask for a plea deal for Mariah. If it goes through, the kidnapper gets probation and time in a psych facility. If Mariah insists on pleading guilty, she's looking at 15 years in prison, which is why it's crucial that Sharon get through to her. In Chancellor Park, Daniel Romalotti sees Mariah and admits he's involved with Tessa Porter. Mariah has no issue with it, or so she says. Daniel asks if Mariah still loves Tessa, and she lets her guard down and starts crying. Kind Daniel hugs her and later Daniel calls Tessa. Later Daniel tells her what happened with Mariah, and that she is lost without Tessa and Aria Porter Copeland. Meanwhile, at Crimson Lights, Sharon and Christine confront Mariah, who insists she deserves full punishment for kidnapping Dominic Winters. But wait, there's more. Mariah gets a text from Tessa and suddenly she isn't so sure she wants to spend the next 15 years in prison. The Young and the Restless spoilers hint that what happens next between Tessa and Mariah could change everything. Be sure to catch up on everything happening with Y&R right now. Come back here often for the Young and the Restless spoilers, news, and updates, and make us your favorite hotspot. The tension in Genoa City reaches a boiling point as emotions, loyalties, and buried truths collide in a way that leaves no one untouched. The day begins with a storm already brewing inside Chelsea, whose transformation into a fiercely protective force signals a major shift in her identity and priorities. When she spots Billy at Society, the air instantly thickens with hostility. She doesn't approach calmly or cautiously. She charges in, fueled by weeks of pent-up resentment and a deep-seated need to prove herself. Overhearing Billy's conversation about merging a new acquisition into Spectre Charles only confirms her suspicions that he's reveling in past victories, and she interprets it as a deliberate attempt to provoke her. Chelsea's reaction is explosive, her voice cutting through the ambient noise as she accuses him of arrogance and manipulation. She declares with unwavering conviction that she is no longer the woman he once knew. She is a Newman now, and she will defend Adam and his legacy with everything she has. The declaration isn't just about family allegiance, it's about identity, survival, and rewriting her narrative. Billy, never one to back down, meets her fire with his own brand of sharp-edged skepticism. He questions her sudden loyalty and digs into her past, throwing out a biting accusation about Jack's kidnapping. The implication lands hard, reopening wounds Chelsea has fought to bury. But instead of retreating, she leans in, her anger sharpening into something colder and more dangerous. She tells Billy he's made things personal, and from that moment on, any illusion of civility between them is completely shattered. Elsewhere, a different kind of tension unfolds, quieter but no less intense. Nick waits anxiously, watching Adam spiral deeper into obsession as he repeatedly tries to reach Riza. Each unanswered call chips away at Adam's composure, yet he refuses to give up. When Riza finally calls back, there's a flicker of hope, quickly overshadowed by unease. Adam invites her to his room, attempting to sound casual, but the underlying urgency is unmistakable. When she arrives, the atmosphere shifts instantly. What should have been a reunion turns into a confrontation as she pulls a gun on him, calling him by a name tied to a past he can't escape. The moment is charged with history, betrayal, and unanswered questions, leaving Adam standing at the edge of a situation he can't control. Meanwhile, Nick faces a crisis of his own, one that is deeply physical and impossible to ignore. Alone in an elevator, he experiences a sudden and overwhelming surge of pain that leaves him gasping and disoriented. With no immediate help and desperation setting in, he turns to the only relief within reach, a pill from Matt's hidden supply. The decision is made in a moment of vulnerability, but it carries consequences that could ripple far beyond this isolated incident. As the elevator doors eventually open, Nick composes himself, but the cracks are already forming beneath the surface. At the same time, the legal and emotional battle surrounding Mariah intensifies. Christine approaches Sharon with a sense of urgency, laying out the harsh reality of Mariah's situation. A plea deal could mean the difference between a chance at rehabilitation and a decade and a half behind bars. The stakes couldn't be higher, and Christine makes it clear that Sharon's influence may be the key to convincing Mariah to reconsider her stance. Sharon is torn, caught between respecting Mariah's sense of accountability and protecting her from a punishment that may destroy her. In Chancellor Park, a chance encounter between Daniel and Mariah becomes a pivotal moment. Daniel's honesty about his relationship with Tessa is met with an unexpected calm from Mariah, but the facade quickly cracks. When he gently probes deeper, asking if she still loves Tessa, Mariah can't hold back anymore. The truth spills out in the form of tears, revealing a vulnerability she's tried so hard to suppress. Daniel's response is compassionate and steady. He doesn't judge or push, he simply offers support. The embrace they share is one of understanding and quiet sorrow, a moment that underscores just how lost Mariah truly feels. Later, Daniel reaches out to Tessa, relaying what he's seen and felt. He doesn't dramatize or exaggerate, he speaks from a place of genuine concern, emphasizing how deeply Mariah is struggling without her and their child. The conversation plants a seed, one that begins to shift Tessa's perspective and sets the stage for what might come next. Back at Crimson Lights, the confrontation everyone has been dreading finally takes place. Sharon and Christine sit down with Mariah, hoping to break through her rigid determination to accept full punishment. Mariah insists she deserves it, that there's no justification for what she's done. Her words are steady, but there's an undercurrent of pain that's impossible to ignore. Sharon pleads with her, not as a strategist, but as a mother, urging her to consider the possibility of healing instead of self-destruction. Christine adds the legal perspective, outlining the consequences in stark terms, but Mariah remains resolute until everything changes in an instant. A simple text message arrives, but its impact is anything but simple. Seeing Tessa's name on her phone shakes Mariah to her core. The certainty she's been clinging to begins to unravel, replaced by a flood of emotions she can't control. For the first time, doubt creeps in. The idea of spending 15 years in prison suddenly feels less like justice and more like a life sentence she may not be able to endure. As the day unfolds, every character finds themselves at a crossroads. Chelsea embraces a new, more ruthless version of herself, determined to prove her place in a powerful family. Billy faces the consequences of pushing too far, igniting conflicts that could spiral out of control. Adam is forced to confront a past that refuses to stay buried, while Nick teeters on the edge of a dangerous path. Sharon and Christine fight to save Mariah from herself, and Daniel becomes an unexpected source of clarity and compassion. But it is Mariah's story that stands at the heart of everything, a woman grappling with guilt, love, and the possibility of redemption. The text from Tessa isn't just a message, it's a lifeline, reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is still a chance for connection, for forgiveness, and perhaps even for a future that doesn't end behind bars. What happens next will not only shape Mariah's fate, but will send shockwaves through everyone connected to her, proving once again that in Genoa City, no choice is ever made in isolation, and every decision carries the power to change everything. The ripple effects of that single moment, Mariah staring down at her phone, her entire future suddenly thrown into question, begin to spread across Genoa City with quiet but undeniable force. What had once felt inevitable now seems uncertain, and that uncertainty becomes the most dangerous element of all. Mariah's breathing grows uneven as she reads and rereads Tessa's message, every word cutting deeper than the last. It isn't dramatic or poetic, it's simple, raw, and achingly real. Tessa doesn't plead or pressure, she just reaches out. And somehow, that makes it even harder for Mariah to hold on to the resolve she had been clinging to like armor. Sharon notices the shift immediately. A mother always does. There's a flicker in Mariah's eyes, something softer, something conflicted, and Sharon leans forward, her voice gentle but urgent as she asks what the message says. Mariah doesn't answer right away. Instead, she presses her lips together, fighting back another wave of emotion. Christine watches closely, recognizing that this is the turning point they've been hoping for, but also understanding that pushing too hard could backfire. The room feels suspended in time, every second stretching out as Mariah battles with herself. Finally, she speaks, but her voice is no longer steady. She admits that Tessa wants to see her, that she hasn't given up, that she still believes there's something worth saving. Saying it out loud breaks something open inside her, and the tears she had been holding back finally fall freely. Sharon reaches for her hand, squeezing it tightly, grounding her in the moment. She doesn't lecture or argue, she simply reminds Mariah that loving someone and wanting to make things right doesn't have to mean destroying yourself in the process. Christine carefully steps in, her tone measured and compassionate. She reiterates the reality of the plea deal, not as a threat, but as an option, a path that allows for accountability without total devastation. She explains that the system isn't just about punishment, it can also be about rehabilitation, about giving someone the chance to rebuild. Mariah listens, really listens this time, and while she doesn't immediately agree, the rigid wall she had built around her decision is beginning to crack. Across town, the confrontation between Chelsea and Billy continues to escalate long after their initial clash. What started as a verbal sparring match has evolved into something far more personal, far more dangerous. Billy can't shake the look in Chelsea's eyes, the intensity, the conviction, and it unsettles him more than he's willing to admit. He tries to brush it off, to convince himself that it's just another one of her dramatic episodes, but deep down, he knows something has changed. Chelsea, on the other hand, walks away from society with a sense of purpose that borders on obsession. Her declaration wasn't just for Billy's benefit, it was a promise to herself. She is done being underestimated, done being seen as unstable or unreliable. If being a Newman means fighting harder, pushing further, and refusing to back down, then that's exactly what she's going to do. And if Billy stands in her way, she won't hesitate to take him down. Meanwhile, Adam's situation takes a darker turn as he faces Riza, the guns still trained on him. The room is thick with tension, every movement calculated, every word carrying weight. Adam tries to keep his composure, but there's no denying the danger he's in. Riza isn't bluffing, her hand is steady, her eyes unwavering. She demands answers, accusing him of dragging her back into a world she tried to escape. The name Spider hangs in the air like a ghost, a reminder of everything Adam has tried to bury. Adam attempts to reason with her, insisting that he didn't mean for things to spiral this way, that he just needed information, closure, something. But Riza isn't interested in explanations. She's angry, yes, but beneath that anger is fear, the kind that comes from knowing how quickly everything can fall apart. She tells him that whatever game he thinks he's playing, it ends now. No more calls, no more secrets, no more pulling her into his mess. For a moment, it seems like the situation might de-escalate. Adam lowers his voice, softens his approach, tries to appeal to whatever connection they once had. But then something shifts, maybe it's a memory, maybe it's a realization, and Riza's grip tightens on the gun. The past isn't something she can just walk away from, not when it's standing right in front of her. At the same time, Nick emerges from the elevator, the worst of the pain subsiding, but leaving behind a lingering sense of unease. The pill has done its job, but at a cost he's not ready to confront. He straightens his jacket, takes a deep breath, and forces himself to move forward as if nothing happened. But the truth is, something did happen, something that could easily become a pattern if he's not careful. He runs a hand through his hair, trying to shake off the experience, but the memory of that helplessness sticks with him. For a man who prides himself on control, on being the one others rely on, the vulnerability he just experienced is deeply unsettling. And yet, instead of seeking help or even acknowledging it, he pushes it down, choosing to deal with it alone. Back at Chancellor Park, Daniel sits on a bench, replaying his conversation with Mariah over and over in his mind. He can't shake the image of her breaking down, the way her composure crumbled the moment she allowed herself to be honest. It stays with him, lingering in a way that feels significant. He knows he did the right thing by telling Tessa, but there's a part of him that wonders if it will be enough. When Tessa receives his call, she listens in silence, absorbing every detail. She had tried to convince herself that Mariah had moved on, that the distance between them was final, but hearing the truth changes everything. The pain, the confusion, the love that hasn't gone away, it all comes rushing back. And suddenly, staying away doesn't feel like the right choice anymore. Tessa makes a decision, one that carries its own risks. She can't fix everything, she can't erase what's been done, but she can show up. She can face Mariah, look her in the eye, and have the conversation they've both been avoiding. It's not about promises or guarantees, it's about honesty, about giving themselves a chance to figure out what comes next. As evening approaches, the various threads of the day begin to converge, each character moving closer to a moment that will define what comes next. Mariah, still shaken but no longer certain of her path, agrees to see Tessa. Sharon watches this development with cautious hope, while Christine begins preparing for the possibility that Mariah might reconsider the plea. Chelsea, fueled by determination, starts making calls of her own, setting plans into motion that could shift the balance of power in ways no one expects. Billy senses that something is coming but doesn't yet know what form it will take. Adam and Riza remain locked in their standoff, the outcome uncertain, the stakes higher than ever. And Nick, despite his efforts to move on, finds himself haunted by the realization that even the strongest can falter, and that sometimes, the smallest decisions can lead to the biggest consequences. By the time night falls over Genoa City, one thing is clear, nothing is settled. Not the conflicts, not the relationships, not the futures hanging in the balance. If anything, the uncertainty has only deepened, setting the stage for choices that will change everything. And at the center of it all is a single, fragile possibility, the idea that even in the midst of chaos, there might still be a way forward. Night settles over Genoa City like a heavy curtain, but instead of bringing peace, it seems to sharpen every unresolved emotion. The quiet hum of the city contrasts with the storm brewing inside the people who refuse to rest, each of them circling decisions that can no longer be delayed. Mariah sits alone for a long time before she finally moves. The text from Tessa remains open on her phone, the words now etched into her thoughts. What once felt like certainty, confessing, accepting punishment, paying the price, now feels incomplete. Not wrong, but not whole. She begins to realize that accountability doesn't have to mean erasing herself completely, and that maybe, just maybe, there's a path where she can face what she's done without losing every piece of her future. When she finally stands, there's hesitation in her movements, but also something new, something fragile and unfamiliar, hope. It terrifies her more than anything else. Across town, Tessa prepares herself in a way that feels almost ritualistic. She doesn't rush. Every step, every breath is deliberate, as if she's bracing for impact. Seeing Mariah again won't be easy. There are too many unanswered questions, too much pain sitting just beneath the surface. But there's also love, complicated, bruised, but undeniably still there. And that's what drives her forward. Their eventual meeting is quiet, almost understated, but the emotional weight between them is overwhelming. For a moment, neither of them speaks. They just look at each other, taking in the reality of what's been lost and what might still be salvaged. Mariah is the first to break, her voice trembling as she admits she doesn't know what the right choice is anymore. It's the most honest thing she's said all day. Tessa doesn't offer solutions. She doesn't tell Mariah what to do. Instead, she tells her the truth, that she's angry, that she's hurt, but that she hasn't stopped caring.